This is disappointing because the Epstein files have been reviewed by 2 Justice Department administrations. What I mean by that is, if there were people that should have been prosecuted, trust me, whether you're a Democrat, whether you're a Republican, they would have been prosecuted. And I know a lot of people make issues with the former President Clinton, and now they're claiming Trump. But I think what folks also have to understand is when you become president, you shake millions of hands along the way. You're friends with very, very wealthy, powerful people. You don't know their bedtime rituals of every single one. So it's amazing to me, though, that society gravitates towards this, what some would say a vivacious, sexy topic, and not be reasonable when you have that fundamental understanding that 2 Justice Departments, one under a Democrat, one under a Republican, have reviewed the files, and no further persons other than the ones that have been prosecuted. So, I don't know if that answered your question, but I'm hopeful that it did.
No, it did. Listen, Epstein is dead. This thing will play itself out. Certain people may even get pardoned. Who knows? But when I see stories like today, the Saudi Crown Prince, MBS in town, $1 trillion deal. They're having a state dinner right now talking about building a future, them buying certain things from us, meaning AI, that will put a whole lot of money into some American-owned companies, and the natural gas industry, which I think is the real reason Saudi Arabia wants to get back in America and as quickly as possible. We're talking $1 trillion deal. I don't know anybody in any position, whether it be the private sector or politics, who's ever cut a deal like that. And it's basically been business as usual for the president today. He just continues to work the art of the deal. Why are we not focusing on that, do you think?
Well, I'll tell you, because people a lot of times can't grasp it, meaning this AI is so important. And you talk to, whether it's NVIDIA CEO, you talk to Elon Musk, you talk to all these various peoples, whoever wins that race is going to win the world. And so the Saudis have always had a very interesting relationship with Americans, particularly with regard to oil. But we flipped the script in the first Trump administration by producing more oil and being self-serving. And now we are, as you had said, with gas. So the Saudis need us more than we need them. And we also saw this as far as really the whole Middle East with the Iran deal. President Trump didn't have to give them a $10 billion or $100 billion. He said, look, you're either going to do this or we're going to have problems, and he made the deal. So our country does need to focus more and more on these positive, very constructive types of deals and arguments that are made. And what I'm hopeful for, regardless if you're a Republican or you're a Democrat, and I've said this before, get behind our president. We particularly have a president that's a deal maker. And I don't care if you're a D and you say, well, I don't like, single issue people. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's going to benefit us. It's going to benefit us on national security. It's going to benefit us on tax revenues. It's going to benefit us as a society as a whole in developing. And so I never understand when we get caught up in these issues that really 2 Justice Departments robbed. Who's ever made that argument? I haven't heard that on television. I think I might be the first to say this. 2 Justice Departments have looked at this. If you want to be a Nancy Drew and be Mr. Investigator and want to see all that stuff, that's great. Go to the National Archives or something. But really, it's sort of pathetic when you think about it, because at the end of the day, this Epstein issue has been played out as much as you can play it out.
All right, let's get down to why I wanted you to join me tonight. From the Supreme Court to Pam Bondi and everyone in between, are we doing enough legally to make sure that the government is flying straight?
Yeah, I think we are. There's a reason we have 3 branches of government. And people I think, have to back off sometimes and recognize. I understand nobody's happy with Congress, but quite frankly, they're never happy. I think their percentages are always in the sub 20%. The president, on the other hand, and the Supreme Court have better ratings, but it is a divisive time. Now, the three branches do have checks and balances. And so I do think our country is, as bad as everybody says, it's divisive and people are angry. You could go back to Lincoln's time. You can go back to Thomas Jefferson's time. You can go back to Franklin Delano Roosevelt or even Harry Truman's time. And it's always been the same. We just haven't lived in those eras, but we can read publications during those periods of time, and it's very similar. There's always a divisiveness. There's always this, but we have this great system that our forefathers, they were so brilliant. They really, when you like to just go back in time and say you were unbelievably brilliant, people think Elon Musk is brilliant, and he is, but think about our forefathers to put together what they put together. So yes, I do think that the system works, and I'll tell you this, Rob, it might not be perfect, and people might get upset with it, but it's the best system going anywhere in the world, and we should all be very grateful.
Yeah, and here's the other thing, why the power of the legal people around this country, whether they sit on a bench, whatever the court may be, or an attorney at law, is the fact that I think his group of lawyers not only have helped him get business done in a big way in Washington, but also kept him upright through some very difficult times that enabled us to get this art of the deal president in the White House again. So legally, the law and those who work it every day, people like you, have been a big deal for the president, and once again in the White House, and the ability to get back to the White House. So he's got some really remarkable people who work in the law every day at his side.
He has remarkable people. You look at the Attorney General and the Deputy Attorney General, and they'll say, well, the Deputy Attorney General one time defended Trump and did this and that. That's because the guy is unbelievably talented. And, Dick Thornburg, if we remember the great late Dick Thornburg, he was so many titles I don't want to name him, but a lot of people might just remember him as governor, but he had a lot more, trust me. He said, one time the reporters asked him, they said, well, we understand you're hiring this person that donated to your campaign as your friend, and this one that's your friend. And he looked at them, he stopped them, and he goes, and what's your point? He said, well, isn't that being, he says, wait a minute. He said, what am I supposed to hire my enemies? I want my people around here that I can trust that are looking out for me. So, once again, I really believe a lot of folks, they really don't think these out before they have these statements made, because it's sort of like they're living in a dreamland or something. I don't quite get it. But, yes, he has great people around him. He's going to continue to have great people around him, and that's in part why there's a great deal. But he also, I've always said this. I got into an argument one time on a TV set, on a TV show I used to do. I said, let me tell you something. You might have your opinion on Donald Trump, but please, for the love of God, don't call him stupid. I said, anybody that's a billionaire that's in the White House and married to a supermodel is not dumb. Please. I don't get it. I don't understand.
Well, Phil, here's what fascinates me, and I just alluded to this. This guy has done business with some of the biggest labor unions in the country while building skyscrapers around the world, and in particular in that city of 10 million people, New York. He brought Atlantic City back because of gaming. One of the reasons why we have Rivers and the Meadows, Presque, Mountaineer, all of the jobs that have been created, the taxes that are coming in because of it. And he had a reality TV show that was on a network for 11 years when some of the biggest stars in the industry never get past 13 weeks. The guy is continuing.
It was number one.
Yeah,
number one.
And he's continuing to cut deals now, dealing with some of the smartest minds in technology the world has ever known. And he's doing stuff like AI and also showing up in West Mifflin, helping the Pawn and U.S. Steel get to the finish line. So who could ask for anything more? And we'll close on that note. Go ahead.
Well, I can tell you this. That's just my point. Even if you're someone who's very a Democrat that says, I'm never going to like him under any circumstances, We have to start recognizing this country when people make accomplishments. And I think that goes a long way generationally. And you don't have to agree with them. You might not even like them. But please acknowledge that there are great things happening. And please acknowledge that they're because of the president. I mean, you lose all credibility when you don't give somebody the credit that they deserve. And I think that's what he was essentially saying on Air Force One in part today.
Listen, I'll tell you this. Somebody who's been married a few times, it can't always be the other person that's wrong. All I'm saying, you got to think a little bit and step back and look at the big picture. Give and take. And right now, I think there was a reason. Divine intervention, I don't know. But how this guy really, against all odds, ended up back in the White House. And the history books may actually be writing 50 years from now, as we celebrate birthday number 300, that he was the president that saved America's economy. Fair statement or not?
Well, I do think it's a fair statement. I'll tell you something else, and I'll leave you with this parting note.
Okay.
Can you imagine if our Congress would get behind our presidents for a change? The great things that can be accomplished, and enough of this bickering, and it's really bickering, like the government shutdown, which was just, it was obscene. It shouldn't have happened. It's just pathetic. So can you imagine, though, what great strides we can make? And guess what? That could help the D's, that can help the R's, that could help the independents, that could help, I don't know, whatever other party they want to bring. It helps everybody.
Well,
and if you're not in politics for that reason, then it's time to be voted out. How about that?
Well, that's why we live in the united, not divided, but united States of America. Counselor, always a pleasure. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you so much, Rob. Have a pleasant evening.
All right.